Welcome to the fourth episode of Making Sense. Today we are going to talk about, once again,
the Charter Amendment again. But this time it is going to be focusing on the Senate powers and the efforts by the people, the lawmakers, the people in Parliament, to trim the power. Trim down the power.
Switch off the power of the Senate.
I think the word switch off needs to be defined a bit, because when we're talking about trimming down or reducing or even switching off someone's power, it just means that you're going to erase,
Abolish them.
Yes, turn off, non-existent power.
That seems to be what the opposition wants, though.
Of course, the opposition
shut down the Senate.
Yes, in concrete terms. So we're talking about the motions, okay, 3. One sponsored by the government, another sponsored by the main opposition Pheu Thai party, and the other, submitted. It's going to, it's going to be submitted by the Move Forward party, also the second largest opposition party. So basically, the motion that is submitted in Parliament is to, get the approval of the lawmakers to pursue a certain action. Like if, before you actually go and fix the charter, you need the approval of these lawmakers. Okay, give me a show of hands of how many people here in Parliament would go along with amending the charter. Okay. After that, then it will it will begin the process of amendment only after the approval by the majority of the lawmakers has been achieved. Well, at this stage, the motion, the Charter Amendment motion, has been, by the Move Forward party, has been submitted to Parliament. At the time of that submission, to the surprises of many people, the Democrat Party, one of the coalition parties,
gave support?
Yes, 16 of them signed this motion.
However,
and not only the Democrats, but some other, Phum Jai Thai, the smaller parties also signed in support of that motion.
Surprise move.
Surprise. But what has been even more surprised, what is more surprising, on Thursday, was that these the majority of these members of the government parties withdrew their support. So it was like
there was a lobbying. Behind the scene.
It did come, as an even bigger surprise, and people
I've seen
are now
in the news.
Yes.
MFP switch off Senate bid voters.
Yes, and this charter amendment centers.
So swift.
I think the contentious point in this charter amendment effort here is, has to do with this, the powers of the Senate. Because the senators were installed by the coup-maker, National Council for Peace and Order, and that council has now been abolished, right? But the legacy of that council still lives on.
It led to, according to the opponents, it led to the victory of Palang Pracharat, and the fact that the Prime Minister, Prayut Chan-o-cha, is now back in power after, he was Prime Minister, for 5 years. He's now the democratically, a Prime Minister coming from the, democratic process. It's because, he came to power because, the senators voted for him. The current charter stipulates that the senators, play a role in selecting a prime minister, even if that person is, a non-MP. So, so this is the subject. This is the very point where the pro-democracy camps have attacked the current constitution, saying it is undemocratic because how could you let somebody who is a non-elected or is not representative.
So the point seemed to be the Senate was handpicked by the now defunct NCPO, and the election was somehow rigged. And
Well, not rigged, but well, somebody would say it was rigged, right? But the thing about this is once they, these parties, have their MPs, and the MPs, come together, in Parliament, they would have to vote, a prime minister. In previous constitutions, that would restrict the selection of the prime minister to the lawmakers, right? So and the lawmakers would pick one among them to be, the prime minister. Now, under the current constitution, the Senate can step in
and join the MPs in choosing.
and join the MP in, selecting a prime minister, even if that person is,
Not elected by the people.
not an MP.
So that's undemocratic,
To a
but
lot
it's
of,
in the law.
to a lot of pro-democracy, activists and MPs. So they want to get rid of that power of the Senate.
And some Senate even thrown support.
Yes, some
2
of
days
them.
ago.
Yes, at least two. But the point of it all is, these people and the senators might have a different view on this. I mean, and they're prepared to sacrifice, or they're prepared to have, a big part of that power that they have, taken away, right? But the really important point that you need to note here is, if you take away so much power, why do we still need the Senate, right? And so we, if you take away that much power, what we need to do next is, establish, new power for them, and define that and write, the whole page of the Constitution, detailing what kind of powers they want the Senate to have.
So it seems that the opposition and the protest cannot have it all in the short amount of time, because what they want, they call for a rewrite of the Constitution, the dissolution of the House, and the stop to the harassment to the people. But if you want a new Constitution or a rewrite of the Constitution, it means that Mr. Prayut cannot step down yet, because he has to be in power to oversee the process of Constitution amendment.
Yes, this is, in practical term, you're dealing with a process that is not going to be, completed in a month or 2 months, right? We're talking about a process that could take us well into, early next year, sometime next year. Because imagine this Senate wrangling business of the Senate powers. Once you've removed that, it is not in my view, going to satisfy the protesters outside the Parliament, right? The youth-led protesters. They're not going to be just satisfied with only one bit of, the demands, being met. Just one little
That's just
tiny
a
speck.
sub-demand, not the real demand. They want the whole rewrite of the Constitution.
Because another of their demand is that there needs to be an election. So in other words, they don't want the current administration to be in power anymore.
So
right?
it seems that we need a starting point.
We need a starting point. We need to start somewhere.
They need a starting point.
No, because this is the business that affects all of us. So I think it's reasonable to say that we are affected. So we have the right to say that before we begin that process of rewriting, and having the new constitution, there needs to be an order, right? You need to get the order right. Right. So what comes before? What comes before?
Chicken or egg?
The chicken or egg, or the charter, or the election. Right? You need to amend the charter first, because if you don't amend the charter, you don't fix the charter, and you do have the election now, we're going to be, going through that election on the polls under the current rule.
So that
the protesters don't want.
Does that mean we have to live in this kind of political impasse for, I don't know how long, but until the Constitution was amended and and then the Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha can step down?
Well, to be honest,
Because the protests will not cease if
Yes.
their proposals are not met, don't you think?
No, they're not.
But then the PM has to stay in power to oversee the process of constitution amendment.
So that's why a lot of people have been calling for a compromise, because one side cannot have it all, right? You cannot leave the country in a vacuum of power. Definitely not. So somebody has got to be in charge during the charter rewriting process before we actually get to the election itself. So this span of time we're looking at it is going to be months, right? At least, in between. There's going to be a lot of obstacles to me. I see that as obstacles, because we're seeing that before we actually have a group of people established to rewrite the constitution, you need to have a referendum, right, to decide whether there should be this body of the election and the charter rewriting.
So according to the Election Commission, Mr. Prayut cited the information given by the EC. He said that the process of referendum is going to cost us roughly 3 billion baht. We need 2 rounds of referendums. The first one is to decide whether there will be a constitution drafting committee, and the second one, once the charter is drafted, will it be approved by the people?
No. I mean, 3 billion baht, that's a very conservative estimate. I think what the news has been reported and figures coming out of the government is, and they're looking at 10 billion baht. 10 billion, 3 or 4 billion for each of the two, to cover each of the 2 referendums. So each referendum will cost 3 to 4 billion baht. So if we have 2 of them, then it will bring us to about 7 billion already.
He's trying to raise the issue of cost effectiveness to deter the public to throw their support.
Well, it is worth considering. I mean, money doesn't grow on trees, especially right now when we are so financially strapped. Right?
Pandemic.
Yes, because we spend so much time on the relief projects.
But could we afford to live in this kind of impasse? And the pandemic.
Because people arguing on the other side of the argument would say, 10 billion baht is really a worthy cause for democratizing this country. I mean, if they think this is the beginning of a smooth democratic process, the very starting point of democracy, then it's worth spending government budget on it. But we're talking about 2 referendums and 1 general election, and the referendum, if at the end of the second referendum to decide the new constitution. Right? If that constitution that we're drafting, the new one, is put to the people, right, and the people do not accept, what is going to happen? Are we going back to square one, and we're going to spend that much money again on a new round of charter amendments?
So back to the process. I'm sorry. So the process.
So the process is going to be quite time-consuming. Right, and so all this time, the government, there will need to be a government in place to run the country. You cannot have the country, suspended, or the business of government suspended while we're concentrating or focusing on just one particular issue. Right? Even though that particular issue is significant for the survival of this country, we can't put the country on hold. So there needs to be somebody in place, and so the scenario I'm seeing now is there might be pressure growing on the government to become an interim government during the time of the charter amendment process, right? Because the protesters don't want the government to have too much power in its hand, because we're talking about the referendum, and the referendum is like in many ways, and a general election. And so
To convince the people.
the argument is, yes, absolutely. But the argument is, if people believe that a general election can be rigged, what is there an exception for the referendum?
Like the last time.
I don't know.
That was
We're not accusing anyone.
Yeah.
We're not accusing anyone, but we're just, doing this, commenting on what could be, or what the possibility.
because you have to be the one to decide.
Yes.
We have our own views, we have our own opinion, but it doesn't matter.
And this time, it's got to be not one but two referendums,
Yeah.
at least. Okay. So the road will be tough. The road ahead will be tough.
And our role is to inform the public of the factual information, unbiased information, to help you decide whether you will side with whichever side you want. But it has to be you.
Rewriting the biggest law of the land. It's never been that easy.
How many times already, Pi Ming, that we
19.
rewrote the constitution?
I can't remember exactly, but more than a dozen, definitely. And we even we have the a charter that was written by people that we trusted were the most representative of all people. I mean, that particular charter was ripped apart and made way for a new one. And when after each coup, military coup, the rule was the golden rule was to rewrite the constitution,
As if it's going to be a
save,
panacea.
to save the
To
coup
save
makers.
democracy.
No.
To save the coup maker.
From any legal criminal liabilities. And, you basically betraying the country. You are the traitors. You are you commit treason by staging that coup. So
And then you rewrite the law to protect yourself.
Legally. Right. So it has always been like that.
So let's talk about the seer. Will this political impasse?
That's climate change.
So let's move on to the seer. Let's be superstitious for a bit.
Yeah.
So we are living in a political impasse where the protest is gathering steam, and they will stage a big protest on the 19th of September. So this begs the question, will this be the end of Prayut's era?
Well,
Let's talk about the seer.
thank you. I'm flattered, but I would like to stay. I would like to stay, a journalist for a moment.
But you can get rich becoming a seer.
I know, but money isn't the answer to everything, right?
But why? Why do we have to talk about the seer?
Well, because the seer, a lot of several seers, the popular ones, have been predicting that the Prime Minister's star, right, is going to rise again, is going to regain strength.
Okay, disclaimer. Bangkok Post is not superstitious, but we have to talk about this for foreign audiences who don't understand our culture. Many power players, many people in power, they believe in seers and horoscope, and they consult with them a lot when they want to initiate big projects or something like that. They go to these seers. So these seers are very influential.
Influential, and they have been known to sway decisions, major decisions. And so we're talking about, the major seers looking into the future in the next 2 or 3 months, and they have made predictions about the important people's stars, the most important of them being the Prime Minister's, destiny, right, political destiny.
What will it be?
Well, at least 2 of them have predicted that
Prominent ones.
they are prominent. They have made a prediction, predictions to predictions, but they mirror, they're more or less, the same on the same tone. They predict that the Prime Minister will regain his strength, his star will regain political strength after November. Right, definitely after November. One seer said he will emerge stronger, right? Sometime in the middle of October next month.
So
and the other seer says his strength will return, at the beginning of November. So could this be why the protest, the mass protest, is now being scheduled for this month, right?
Because even the protesters, they are trying to counter superstitious with superstitious. They pick the date. They pick the 19th because this commemorates 14 years of the coup that was staged on then Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. So that's why I think they chose this. And also the landmark. They said, okay, on the 19th, if there are too many people and if Thammasat Thapachan is overcrowded, they will try to go to Snam Luang.
Right.
Yeah.
Just next door. Which
It's
is
like
adjacent
trying to usurp the turf of the political elite, the monarchy, even.
Right.
So it's a battle of superstitions.
Yes, that could be, but I always think that there's always the other side of the argument that we should consider, because seers, going back to the seers. I mean, you could, anybody here could be a seer. What happens is when you become a seer, right? You're supposed to have this chart about what goes on in people's stars and how they move, right? And how they interact with the different stars. So that will produce the events, the occurrences in their lives. But this time, when we're seeing what politics holds, for us people on the streets. I mean, sometimes you don't need to be a seer to really analyze, right? If you are well informed and if you've read widely
And
about
you have inside information.
political situations, right? You can pretty much predict, right? Just like we are doing now, we're predicting, the Prime Minister will, will be holding on to power for at least, months, for months. So, it seems to be like we are producing a reasonable prediction, right? And this could really well be what is the future, what the future holds for us. So we don't need to be consulting the charts, right? And we just
Go tell that to Prime Minister.
I don't know. The Prime Minister, well, at this point in time, I think the Prime Minister can also see where, all of this political, maneuverings and the protests and the situation will lead to.
So it remains to be seen whether this will be an end to Prayut's era or not. But yeah, but let's talk about this for a little bit. Some people have been calling for a national unity government or an outsider PM. What is your opinion on this?
Well, this is not the first time that we're hearing national government, and a lot of people don't understand what it is really. But basically it is where there's a government without an opposition. So everybody has a part to play in running the government. But a national government, usually the idea of it is proposed when the country is in crisis.
I think it's so idealistic, bringing these kind of things up over and over again when we are during a political impasse. And let's not forget some of the people who call out for, a national unity government were PDRC, who bred life into the NCPO, and then resulted in the Palang Pracharat rise to power.
Let's just say that in a democratic society, not everybody should think alike. We need an opposition.
Yep.
What is the beauty of having an opposition? It keeps it keeps track of what you do as a government. So a democracy is really the system of accepting people who have different views, right? The opposition has different views, and they voice or express those views. But with a national government, you're supposed to harmonize. You're supposed to, have this, people thinking along the same line.
No, I think we cannot get stuck in the mindset of the 50s where, it's black and white and there'll be a person who rides white horse and come save democracy. We cannot hope for that. Like you said, the beauty of democracy is having, opposing sides, fighting, lobbying for the interests of their groups, and that's democracy. Because we've been trying to breathe life into that concept, the national unity government, for a long time, and it had been proven.
I don't think it's going to materialize, this national government concept. It's not going to see the light of day.
And even the outsider PM.
Because it doesn't seem like we can, compromise at this stage, right? We've got one side saying, I need to be, in government to continue whatever I'm doing, right? And I have managed to, I have done a lot of things for the public good, like alleviating, keeping out COVID-19, and achieved, tremendous, made so many achievements, in terms of transport. So you've got the government, sticking to this, achievements. What they call achievements, and then on the other side saying you can't be here, you need to get out because you are a dictator, you haven't done anything, because you started out wrong, you overthrew the government of a democratically elected administration.
So that's a consequence you have to face.
So this, how can you compromise, with reasons like those? You can't really find a common ground, or do the concept of government, do we need to actually go through, phases of violence first before we actually, contemplate having, one government, harmonize, a government that can harmonize the national government. It's not. It's easier said than done, really. It is not going to be something that a lot of people will find acceptable, right? So, and what happens after a national government, has been sworn and has been sworn in and gotten down to work, right? Who's going to be the prime minister? I mean, this is not going to be easy. In any government, you need a leader. And are you going to be able to find, one leader? This is, the very top of the iceberg, right? The prime minister. How are you going to find that?
But I don't think outsider PM is the answer. I, for one, don't believe in outsider PM because I believe that the prime minister has to come from the people. And if there's someone comes from nowhere, I won't accept that. And I don't think the opposition or the protest or even the supporters of the government would be okay with that. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think if you look at that, issue in a different light, I mean, in the past we have had, outside the Prime Minister, Mr. Anand Banyarachun, he was a Prime Minister, when the country was in crisis.
That's one of the names that pop up.
Yes, and now.
What do you think?
I don't think he is, he's going to accept that that invitation if there was to be one, an invitation sent to him, because right now, for one, the country has not, really reached the boiling critical point, right? Not that yet, not there yet. And for someone to be considered as an opposition prime minister, the person who's been approached to take that position needs to think very, very carefully about the social context, the political context. Right now may be different from years and years ago when it was appointed outside the prime minister. Right now, the crowds are different, certainly. The protesters are getting, are so young now, so much younger than, the participants of previous popular movements that we saw, taken to the street. Now, the circumstances are different, right? So I'm not so sure if Mr. Anand, would be, considering becoming, prime minister if there was a chance for him to do so. But I think the main idea here is, if you're talking about a prime minister who's not elected, but who is honest, for example, this is my question back to you. If the country is now in turmoil, suppose right now, right? We haven't reached that stage yet, but right now, if the country was in so much turmoil and nobody is going to make any, is willing to step out and find a common ground and compromise, then you would need somebody who belongs to neither side coming in to head the government, to diffuse, right, and to resolve this crisis first.
Nobel Prize for that person.
Yes. Do you think that that prime minister is going to be, there's going to be such prime minister,
I don't think at this point, I don't think there'll be that person who will appease the sentiment of both sides. So we can just cross that out of this, the equation outside the PM, even though it was stipulated in the Constitution. So at this point, I think the solution to this political impasse is reconciliation. I don't know, negotiation.
Well, but this is not a cliche, really, because
we need to talk.
Yes, we need to talk. Otherwise, to avert the possibility of a bloodshed. Somebody has suggested that if you learn from the past, you have to learn every single aspect of what has gone wrong in the past, because sometimes mistakes are our best teacher, right? So we need to look very, very logically at what we've gone through. But some people have said that we were on our way. We have actually embarked on that learning process until we got to the point where the coups occurred. The coup has cut us out. The coup had derailed, had taken us out of that path.
Learning process.
And we went back to square one, right? Because on the coup makers would say, that if there hadn't been that coup, if there hadn't been such revolt, I mean, there would have been violence and bloodshed. So we, in fact, were protecting the people.
And we know that that's BS. Can I say that? Well, yeah. I mean, look at where we are now. We're still living in perpetual conflict. And first of all, I think to get out of this impasse, we all need to wake up from our bubbles. Those who call for a national unity government, those who call for outsider PM, we have to get out of that narrative, black and white, the savior. Just, get a reality check and see that the beauty of democracy lies in the opposing ideas, opposing values, where we come to the table and we bring our ideas, our opposing ideas, and then we discuss, we fight, we argue, and we find way out together democratically. And I think that's where we should be heading. Opposition or government needs to come and fight in the democratic path, not through the coup. That's my opinion. You can hate me for that, but I don't care.
Well, I think you need to be, people need to be more accepting of other people's views. this is really something important that we need to remember and we need to practice, really. Labeling is, labeling people actually is the first step towards the, going over the cliff, really.
The audience will start calling you a slim now because you are
you can be
calling
all you
them.
want, you can call me all you want.
Right. I mean, we have opposing views. We don't agree on all the issues, but here we are. We are here talking about our thoughts and ideas, and once again, that's the beauty of democracy. And yeah, stop labeling, start listening, I think.
Because why is labeling such a, to me is one of the, I think the liabilities, not an asset. And that is because you actually build hostility whether you know it or not, right? Because nobody wants to be labeled, right? And when you do that to somebody else, they're going to treat you as their enemies. And the last thing we need is enemies in this society. And
And we are not trying to sound idealistic or naive.
if the first thought that comes to your mind is I'm dealing with my enemy, you're not going to talk reasons, right? You're not going to be, rational. So,
We are imperfect. We are human, but we can talk. So, but yeah,
and we're definitely going to be talking.
our views don't matter. What matters is your view. What do you think? What do you think about these issues? Because it's going to affect all of you. So yeah, feel free to leave your thoughts. What do you think about the Charter Amendment? What do you think about outsider PM, a national unity government, or the protest? Leave your thoughts.
Right, leave your thoughts, share your thoughts, and don't forget, if you like us, just, press that like button and do subscribe to our channel so we can produce, more and, episodes.
Like and of course, as we are living in democratic society, we do encourage you to share your thoughts and even argue civilly in the comment section, but be civil. And yeah, and okay, next week we are going to talk about another interesting, exciting topic, the protest.
Of course.
Okay, because we're not going to talk about it in this episode because we are saving it for next week.
Consider today's edition as a foreword.
Prologue.
Yes, that opens up to this very, very important and very exciting episode.
So stay tuned and thank you for watching
Making sense.